Hi there. In this video I'm going to be using a Swiss ball to show you how to do some really good variations on a shoulder bridge and a reverse plank, and it's great for instilling confidence in what's called the kind of posterior line of the body. We're thinking predominantly about the hamstrings, although this also includes the knee flexors, the gluteal muscles, the extensor mechanism in the back, so it's a really good one for getting that process going. Now, a full reverse plank is actually a really difficult movement, as is some of the more advanced shoulder bridges, whereas if you use one of these things, they can really help you break down the movements and start off from a level which is comfortable. So I'm going to go through the basic version and then talk about the progressions as we go on. So what you want to do to start with is come down onto your back and have the Swiss ball tucked underneath the legs. Now my legs are the same width apart as my hips, and you can see the ball is almost lodged back underneath. So it's very much in contact with the back of my thighs and the calf muscles. And now I'm going to place my hands really wide across the deck. This offers me very nice rotational stability. And you want to start off having your spine in a neutral position, so not flattened into the floor, exactly the same alignment that it would be in an ideal standing posture. So probably a fingertip gap underneath the base of the spine. As I said, the hands are nice and wide, the legs are symmetrical. And to start with, particularly if you're new to this kind of exercise, don't try and lift too much. You're going to push down your heels into the ball, and you can see that ball just kind of get squeezed into the back of my thighs, and I can feel that posterior line of the legs kicking in. Once I've got that pre-engagement, I'm just going to lift my hips quite literally just an inch off the floor and then come back down. Now, I think particularly if you're coming at this from a background of injury or chronic pain or recovering from some operation, you want to make sure you're not going straight into a really difficult level, so I would always suggest starting off very conservatively. Get that pre-engagement, squeeze that ball both in towards you and down towards the floor, and then come up and into your hold. Now, because we're not lifting very high off the floor here, it's not physically too demanding, but you should focus on trying to keep the ball wobble free, particularly in that left-right plane. So as you come up, just check that you are keeping that ball pretty still and it's not out of control. Should go without saying, the higher you lift, the more difficult this will become. It should still feel pretty easy, but you're going to just see how far you can come up, keeping that quality in the ball control and critically making sure you don't feel you're overworked, particularly in the hamstring muscles, but also anywhere along that back line of the body. So there's really the basic aspect. The progression for this one would come if you're able to get the hips relatively far, 5 or 6 inches off the floor, and then we can add in the progression towards a reverse plank. And this would be done with an act of straightening the knees at the top part of your movement. So engage, lift up, press down, and now I'm going to try and squeeze my knees straight. And as I do that, my hips lift and the ball moves slightly further away, and now I'm in a reverse plank where there's a relatively straight line from my heels through to my chest, and then I can come all the way back down. Now, regardless of how high you're lifting, always seek to control that placement of the ball. It shouldn't be wobbling side to side, and it shouldn't be bouncing up and down either. If you feel any of that sort of stuff going on, it's normally a sign your muscles are working a little bit too hard. So there is the basic components of that reverse plank or that reverse shoulder bridge, and the more you come up into that reverse plank position, the less surface area you have in contact with the ball, and therefore the more unstable you get. And that really forms the basis of how to progress this exercise. Base of support, surface area. If I want to progress to very early levels, I'd simply bring my legs together to touch. And in that position, as I come up, I've now got a narrower base of support on the ball, and there's a little bit more tendency for it to wobble. So I can work my core stability a little bit more while also getting that gentle loading to the back line. A very easy other progression, but just flipping it round, would be to keep the feet at the original width, but this time bring the hands in to center. As I come up, I've got far less rotational support, and whether I'm just going up a few inches or whether I'm progressing to the reverse plank alignment, the same thing. The narrower the hands, the more difficult the exercise becomes. Following that on, if I were to remove the hands systematically, again, it becomes much more challenging. So starting off from the wide base of support feet, I come up into my lift, and then I would try to take one hand off, seeing not only whether I can keep the ball still, but critically whether there's any adverse effects anywhere else. Sometimes when you take that base of support off, you go over your capacity in the back strains, for example. We don't want that happening. If that feels okay, that hand goes down. You try the same on the other side.
If that's all clear at that point, then you can progress to taking one hand up and then the other hand up and checking again that you're able to elicit control with an absence of discomfort. Bring the legs together as well and go through that same sequence again. And if you get to a point where you're doing a full reverse plank with both arms off the deck, you're having to utilize quite a lot of core strength in order to perform that exercise correctly. So just by playing around with the width of the hands, whether the hands are on at all, whether one's there, both are off, the width of the feet, these are the ways I would progress this exercise to a basic level, and then at an advanced state, you could start taking the legs off the ball. But that requires quite a lot of extra strength to do that one. So I think we've covered what I would include in the basics of this reverse plank shoulder bridge combination, and it's a great one for energizing that posterior line of the body, working core stability, and just instilling confidence in getting some load going through that part.